Okay, so let's jump right into this. We've got a pretty interesting situation brewing, and we need to take a deep dive into it. What we're looking at is, well, it might seem simple at first. It's the arrival of a top Russian official in Namibia, but it goes way deeper than just a routine diplomatic exchange.
Exactly. We're talking about Russian Vice Premier Minister Yuri Trutnev, and the information we're working from comes from pasted text, originally sourced from YouTube, Traveling with Elaine.
Right, okay.
And what we're going to try to unpack here is, well, the potential significance of this partnership within the broader context of African geopolitics and the aspirations of Pan-Africanism.
So it's not just about two countries meeting.
No.
It's about understanding how this fits into like the global power dynamics.
Exactly.
Especially from an African perspective.
From an African perspective, yeah.
So this is, I think this is going to be pretty insightful for our listeners out there.
Absolutely.
To really understand some of the currents that are moving right now.
Oh, yeah.
On the global stage.
Big things happening.
So, okay, let's dive right into this visit by Mr. Trutnev.
Okay.
He went to Namibia to discuss expanding economic partnership.
That's right.
Between the two nations. And our pasted text tells us that it's quite significant considering the current global context.
It really is.
So his first move was to meet with Selma Ashapala Musavi.
Oh, yes.
The Namibian Minister of International Relations and Trade.
Right.
And this is, I mean, it's not just a formality here. This is a clear indication of this desire to strengthen ties.
Exactly.
And especially economic ties, which is so important for a country's independence.
Absolutely crucial.
Then there's this really symbolic gesture.
Oh, yeah.
He went to Heroes Acre in Windhoek and laid a wreath at the Eternal Flame.
Yeah.
What's the meaning of this act?
I mean, this is powerful.
Right.
You know, Heroes Acre, it's a sacred place.
Right.
It commemorates the Namibian heroes who gave their lives for the self-determination, the freedom and the independence of their country, and for Pan-Africanism. You know, the symbol of the struggle against colonialism has such a deep resonance across the continent.
I see.
So by bowing before this flame, Mr. Trutnev is not only addressing Namibia, but all of Africa. He's acknowledging the suffering endured and this shared desire for sovereignty.
Right.
It's a way of recognizing African history, which is a crucial step in building a shared future based on mutual respect.
And this tribute didn't stop there.
It didn't.
He also paid his respects to the memory of the first Namibian presidents, Sam Nujoma and Haig Godfrey Geingob.
Yes.
This again seems like a significant step beyond just diplomatic protocol.
Oh, absolutely.
What's going on here?
From a Pan-African perspective, these tributes are fundamental. Sam Nujoma, the first president, is an iconic figure of the struggle for independence. Honoring him is recognizing the struggle of a generation of African leaders who rejected colonial domination.
Right.
And Haig Geingob represents the continuation of this ideal in contemporary Namibia. For Pan-Africanists, these figures are landmarks, examples to follow to consolidate the unity and pride of the continent. It's a reaffirmation of African collective memory, which is essential to progress together.
So looking at this Russo-Namibian partnership through the lens of Pan-Africanism, what are the main ideas that emerge? I mean, what does it actually mean for Africa?
You know, from what we're seeing in our sources, Pan-Africanists view this type of South-South cooperation as a significant opportunity to break with the economic dependence inherited from the past. It's a chance to strengthen the sovereignty of African nations, develop their industries, and create added value locally.
So the central idea, which is crucial, is that African resources like Namibian uranium should primarily benefit local populations.
That's right.
And not enrich elites or foreign interests.
Exactly. It's a potentially major paradigm shift.
Yeah. I mean, it makes you wonder how this partnership differs from traditional models of aid or investment and what concrete mechanisms could ensure the benefits are widely distributed.
Big questions.
Right. And then there's this notion of a Pan-African awakening that's mentioned.
Yes.
How does this manifest itself in this particular context?
Well, this awakening translates into a more assertive will on the part of African leaders to place the continent's interests at the heart of their diplomacy.
I see.
The meeting with Russia is an example of this new approach.
Okay.
We're talking about cooperation based on mutual respect, non-interference in internal affairs, and the promotion of each partner's specific strengths.
Right.
The goal is to build a more united Africa, capable of meeting its own needs and playing a greater role on the international stage.
Okay.
Namibia, through its approach, could indeed become a driving force for this renewed Pan-Africanism, a pragmatic Pan-Africanism focused on action.
And it will be interesting to take a closer look at how this new approach actually translates in terms of policies and agreements.
Absolutely.
So beyond the economic aspects, there's this idea of strengthening local capacities, developing infrastructure, promoting technology transfer. It's an ambitious program.
It is.
What are the concrete challenges in achieving these objectives?
It's a key point. For Pan-Africanists, these partnerships must, above all, serve the emancipation of African youth by offering them future prospects on their own continent.
I see.
The idea is not simply to attract investment, but to create a virtuous circle of endogenous development.
Right.
And the tribute paid to Sam Nujoma takes on its full meaning here.
Okay.
He not only liberated his country, but he also maintained strong ties with the Soviet Union, recognition that still resonates today for those seeking strategic alliances without falling under a new form of domination.
I wonder about the specific nature of the technologies being considered for transfer and the mechanisms in place to guarantee real ownership by Africans.
Important questions.
Our sources express a fairly strong critique of Western influence in Africa.
That's right.
What's the basis for this Pan-Africanist argument?
Well, the argument centers on the idea that there's a contradiction between the discourse on African sovereignty and the reality of relations with some Western countries. What's being denounced is what is perceived as neocolonialism. Disadvantageous trade agreements that favor resource extraction at the expense of local development. Persistent monetary influence and support for regimes that serve external interests rather than those of their populations.
I see.
So this viewpoint really emphasizes a perceived historical imbalance in relations between Africa and some Western actors.
And international financial institutions are also criticized from this perspective.
Absolutely.
How so?
They're often seen as instruments of this influence, imposing austerity policies that have negative consequences on essential public services like education, health, and agriculture in Africa. The idea is that behind the stated intentions of cooperation, there lies a reality of plunder and cultural domination that hinders the continent's true development.
Right. I mean, we could delve deeper into specific examples of these policies and their impact on African populations.
Absolutely.
So the Pan-Africanist message is that it's time to move beyond this relationship of dependence.
That's it, exactly. Africa aspires to no longer be considered merely a supplier of raw materials or a field of influence. What is being demanded are fair partnerships, respect for sovereignty, and genuine self-determination. This also involves questioning thought patterns inherited from colonization and asserting the continent's own value and potential.
What concrete strategic lessons can African nations learn from this Russo-Namibian partnership, especially considering the critique of Western influence?
An important lesson is the need to negotiate partnerships with a clear strategic vision and a position of strength. Hasty agreements concluded under pressure without rigorous impact assessments. And without a long-term perspective for the development of the country and the continent must be avoided. Each partnership must be designed to meet the fundamental needs of African populations. We're talking industrialization, food security, access to technologies, sustainable job creation. Namibia's case could be interpreted as an attempt to diversify partnerships so as not to be overly dependent on a single sphere of influence.
And is the Russo-Namibian partnership being presented as a potential model for other African nations?
It's presented as an illustration of the possibility of establishing bilateral relations based on transparency, mutual respect, and the involvement of local communities. It's an example of how African nations can explore different cooperation options without necessarily replicating traditional patterns.
So the ultimate goal would be to develop a genuine Pan-African economic diplomacy. Where each state contributes to a concerted continental strategy to transform Africa and break with the extractivist model inherited from colonialism.
Exactly.
So in conclusion, What's the main message
Yeah.
that emerges from this meeting in Namibia
Okay.
for the future of Africa on the world stage?
This Russo-Namibian partnership is more than just bilateral cooperation. It represents a historic opportunity to redefine Africa's place in the world.
Okay.
Through balanced strategic alliances based on mutual respect,
Right.
Africa can gradually overcome its marginalization and regain control of its resources, its policies, and its destiny. But this requires unity of voice, will, and action from all African peoples.
I see.
Pan-Africanism is not an outdated idea, but an urgent necessity to face the challenges of the 21st century.
Okay.
This meeting in Namibia should encourage African nations to move forward together towards a future of dignity, autonomy, and shared prosperity.
So to sum up this meeting between Russia and Namibia highlights a growing trend of African nations diversifying their partnerships and the continued relevance of Pan-African ideals to achieve true sovereignty and independent development.
Exactly.
In contrast to the historical and current challenges perceived as stemming from Western influence.
To leave you with one last thought in this rapidly evolving geopolitical landscape, what role do you think historical narratives and collective memory play in shaping the future of international partnerships for African nations?
And our sources for this deep dive were pasted text, originally sourced from YouTube, Traveling with Elaine,